Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What happened at your workplace to cause mass quits? Part 6. They got everyone together for a meeting and said, "This is Heather from Employment Insurance. She's here to help you fill out your L form. All of you have been fired, but those of you on the list will still work for us for another week. Now, contracts will last for 1 week at a time. If you get paid at the end of the week but don't have a contract to sign, you're fired. Thank you and have a good day." Long story short, the company I worked for had to let competitors offer long-distance service at the same time that I did. The business seemed harmless at first. People signed up for one of those cards where you first call 1010 plus some other number, then the number on the card, and finally the number you were calling to save a lot of money. So the CRTC let these companies get around the need for cards. Users would only have to dial 1 plus the number they were calling as long as the user agreed to the switch. So my company thought it would be a good idea to hire a sales company whose president also owns a long-distance company to go out and make sales. For every signature they turned in, they would get a big check. No one checked any of these signatures though, and the salespeople just picked names out of phone books and signed up every Aaron A. Aronson they could find. As you might expect, people were mad that their long-distance provider changed without their permission. The business began to have some problems. It was the best long-distance service for a while. Stocks were going through the roof. But they weren't making as much money because customers were going back to Bell faster than they could keep them. One day, it might have been the Thursday before the long weekend, but I think it was the Friday before. The courier, who was supposed to deliver the quarterly report to the board of directors, chose to clean up over the weekend instead, and the numbers were delivered a day early. Before the meeting, the board of directors learned that the company had lost money in the fourth quarter. The results were then made public. So, that day, every single board member sold their shares, which caused the price to drop from about $100 a share to 25 cents a share very quickly. It was already damaged when the Bank of Canada tried to shut it down. The company's president left the country for the Cayman Islands with $10 million in cash. Since we had a long weekend, we all met Heather from L when we got back. Bigger company bought the small business. Every department got a bonus to make sure that every other department closed down. You'd get some of the bonus if you were able to stay until the end of the department's closing. After the meeting with Heather, a lot of people left. I was employed at a fantastic record store. That is a very old sentence. It was really awesome. A regional manager who grew up in the same Midwestern city as me made me an offer for the position. To take this job, my whole family and I moved. Regretfully, neither he nor I were aware that the business was going to fail. It was the business's desperate attempt to remain current. We'll refer to them as Gam Sudi. I had the most amazing job. I got to play demo guitars and talk to people all day about video games and music. I was instructed to hire a large number of people to assist with liquidation and stop shrink just before it started. I had to keep the store closing for 6 weeks a secret from them. I told everyone during the interviews and they all agreed. To keep people around, we were paying a little more than usual. The corporation of the company became involved and made the decision to fire half of the employees while offering managers a bonus if we could keep the shrinkage under 5%. I concluded that this was nonsense. They didn't pay me for this nonsense, and I was hired under false pretenses. Gam Sudi didn't pay me to give NES, and they already had 15% shrink rates as it was. The final 3 of us decided we'd had enough and left that same day right around the time we went to 50% off everything and let go of 9 out of the 12 employees. I had no stake in the outcome because the cool regional manager had already been fired. The store was fined $50 per hour for leaving the gate closed. It was in a mall, I forgot to mention that. More money was lost than was brought. After 2 weeks, the store was 80 to 90% off. Typically, it takes things longer than 2 weeks to go from 50% to that amount. Just before the store closed the previous day, I recalled that I still had the store's keys. I was just gonna toss them through the gate when I went to drop them off. A large box was located close to the gate. It was filled to the brim with Gam Sooty t-shirts from earlier holiday sales. I stole 9 shirts, forgot the money in the safe, and emailed the other workers I was quitting with. A week or two later, we had a small get-together and distributed shirts. I still have mine, and I use it for house projects and other things, but it serves as a constant reminder of why I'll never want to work in retail. One day, working retail in a big box store will sound as antiquated as me working in a record store. I'm pretty late to the party, but the factory where I worked for more than 6 years as a supervisor had more than 430 employees. They had 20 to 30 people coming in every week, and they let them go after the week was over. As a result, they would only pay them for the training, and they would justify it by saying that the employee hasn't met proper conditions to work for us. After that, they began releasing people who were over 30 years old, refusing to pay indemnity, and openly going to court with expensive lawyers who were just effing themselves. We worked with chemicals, the factory is over a century old, the roof causes cancer because it's made of asbestos, and we made the decision not to pay for a new roof because the tickets for it, 3 million euros per year, were less expensive than purchasing a new roof. Following that, they called each and every one of us for the day shift. More than 200 workers informed us that we needed to sign our new contracts. According to the new contract, they were not responsible for any type of cancer, any type of burn, any type of respiratory condition, or any bone lesion. Following a thorough reading of it, in which nobody had made any comments, I inquired of the director, "Is this for real?" He responded in the affirmative, and as I was leaving the room, I told him to go F himself. He then yelled that I'd been fired. Out of the remaining people, only 17 were standing. 2 weeks later, after I had contacted attorneys and companies that deal with work-related issues, state-run businesses, I made an appeal to each and every employee working at the entrance to bring these effing managers to the attention of the general public. However, none of them accepted my request. After 1 week, the attorney calls and tells me that we have a pretty good case against them. When I asked him how he got it, he said that he had 192 signatures from workers. Despite the fact that management was terminated, they're still required to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in indemnities. The factory has shut down. Due to the fact that I told my director to go F himself, I was required to spend 80 hours performing community service. Still, it's well worth it. In the most recent time that I heard about him, he was attempting to get pop-ups to work, but none of them had done so yet. I'll be there whenever it's possible to boycott it. Americans, what's your most horrific encounter with the Homeowners Association / Neighbors from H, Part 6? When my son turned 4, he expressed interest in constructing a birdhouse. Whenever he expresses a desire to create something and not be glued to the television or iPad, I'm overjoyed. As a result, we went out to purchase one of those birdhouse kits that already had the pieces cut out for us. I let him do his thing, with the exception of starting the nails and assisting him in determining which piece goes where, because he gets a lot of satisfaction from being independent. In addition, he painted it afterward and referred to it as the Rainbow House, so you can probably guess what it looked like. Despite the fact that it was barely holding together, he was so proud of it because it was his in the first place. When I got home from work the following day, I found a letter from the HOA shoved in my door. We had placed it on our table on the back deck, and it was there when I got home. The existence of an animal sanctuary on our property resulted in a fine of $50. In order to contest the fine, I went to the office of the property management company, where I was informed that they would take me to court if I did not pay. In light of the fact that it is technically considered to be an animal sanctuary, despite the fact that I seriously doubt any birds would ever make use of it, I made the decision to save some money and just pay the fine rather than pursue legal action against it. One of the most difficult aspects of this entire ordeal was having to explain to my son why he was not allowed to display his birdhouse. I shared with him the information that the HOA had shared, and he informed me that the next time we move, we ought to make certain that there are no HOAs in the vicinity. Not the most horrific encounter, but I want to share this. A number of years ago, we relocated to a neighborhood that had a homeowners association that appeared to be relatively undemanding. At this point, the previous proprietor was a complete and utter jerk who would never be considered a trustworthy neighbor. Because he was sick of the neighbors yelling at him to cut the grass, he paved the majority of the front yard. This was one of the worst things he did. A letter from the HOA informed us that the driveway was out of compliance approximately 6 months after the initial notification. When I called the number that was listed in the letter and inquired about what they meant, they informed me that it was much too big and that it needed to be changed in size. The other person: okay, so just let me know when the contractors will be here so I can move my cars. Association of Homeowners: no, you're the one who needs to pay to have it reduced in size. The other person: sorry, there were no covenant violations listed in the settlement papers, so there was no problem then, which means there's no problem now. The Homeowners Association: but, my response: let me know when they'll be here and I'll move my cars. That was 17 years ago, and I never heard from them again after that. First, some background information. I have been parking my van on the street in front of my driveway for almost a year without encountering any issues. The day before yesterday, we saw the individual attempting to put it on his tow truck in the middle of the nighttime. I go outside and ask him what's going on. He tells me that he's received a letter from the HOA stating that they do not want this oversized vehicle on their property, which is obviously a public road and not a fenced or gated community either, and that they want it towed specifically after 1 a.m. After the guy tells me that he'll let it down, all he needs to do is show me the key. I went back inside and did what he said. It's a public road, and there are no signs indicating that I'm not permitted to park there. He tells me to park on the street over, saying that it shouldn't be a problem there. He also says that it shouldn't be a problem there. That's exactly what I did, and I parked my vehicle there for the entire day, only to discover that it was towed away. Went to the local police department thinking that they might have towed it or something, but when I checked, they denied having done anything like that. I was thinking about that tow company at that moment, and I realized that they had done that. I called them and asked if they had it or not. They responded that they did, saying that it was towed at 11:12 a.m. I started asking questions about why it was towed from a public road and other things, and she told me that the HOA manager wanted it gone. After that, she told me to stay on hold. Meanwhile, all of this was taking place right in front of the front desk of the police department. The tow company called it in while I was on hold with them, and they informed the police that it had been relocated. Therefore, for reasons of the law, they either forgot to do it or did something else. I don't know. The fact that I have been the owner of the property for 16 years and have always paid my fees has been a roller coaster for me. But the fact that I have received this from the HOA has been even more exciting. They've not provided any prior notice, including emails or phone calls. They are nothing more than rats, and they're attempting to steal my van in the middle of the night when they believe I'm sleeping with them. Update for those who are interested in knowing the conclusion of this story. As a result, I went to my village hall to have a conversation with the Department of Public Works. The purpose of this investigation is to determine whether or not the roads are, in fact, public, as some of you have suggested. The woman who is sitting in the cubicle informed me that my village is responsible for the maintenance of roads, including snow removal, road maintenance, and other related tasks. She even provided me with a map. In addition, I recorded everything so that I'd have evidence. That means they had no right to tow my van. I went to the HOA meeting with that. I had to wait a few days before it was held. There were quite a few people at the meeting, which was a good thing. Luck was on my side. I took the floor and stated that the HOA is essentially committing illegal acts and liquidating our property simply because they have the power. After all, my van wasn't in anyone's way. After me, another homeowner who had a similar situation spoke up. And then, like dominoes, one after another, the complaints about the HOA manager and all the board members for everything they've ever done that caused dissatisfaction are just annoyed, until something shocking came out. One of the homeowners claimed that the HOA was probably pocketing our dues money for themselves. He showed us the financials. This caused a riot. We immediately wished they would resign and that they would return the money, or we would all sue them. They had to agree. If you want to watch the part 5, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many thanks for your support.